Welcome, everyone. We'll call the order, the meeting, Board of Directors meeting for the Carson City Culture and Tourism Authority Board. We're in Carson City at the Community Center, and it's 4 o'clock. Linda, can I get a roll call?
Trish Trenoweth.
Present.
Mike Riggs.
Present.
Mike Jones.
Present.
Mike Santos. Stacy Giomi. We have a quorum.
I could please ask everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to invite any public comment. The public's invited to comment or discuss any topic that's relevant to this authority or the public body. Seeing none, we'll move on to the next agenda item. That's the number 5, the approval of the minutes of the June 24th, 2019 CTA board meeting.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion is approved. Item 6, possible action, adoption of agenda. I don't at this time see any reason to move any of the agenda items around. If anyone does, we'll go with the agenda as published. Item 7, it's time that we discuss possible action regarding an election of new officers, or not new officers, I guess, maybe. But we need to elect chairperson, vice chair, and secretary treasurer. So with that being said, I'll start with the chairperson. If there's any nominations.
I'd like to nominate Mike Jones for chair.
The second?
That was me.
That was.
Oh, that was you.
It was fast.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Thank you very much for the vote of confidence. We'll move on to the vice chair, nominations for vice chair. Anyone?
Yeah.
I make a motion, I'd like to nominate Mike Riggs for vice chair.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Motion passes. And finally, secretary treasurer.
I'd like to nominate Mike Santos for secretary treasurer.
I'll
Or
second.
move.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Motion passes. Agenda item 8, discussion and possible action regarding the approval of the cooperative agreement between Carson City, a consolidated municipality and political subdivision of the state of Nevada, and the Carson City Culture and Tourism Authority, the CTA, a county fair and recreation board created by the city pursuant to NRS 244A for administrative services and facility use and management, to be funded by 2% of the total 11% transient lodging tax rate, approximately $426,000 for fiscal year 20. David, I think it's this is our second go-around, I think, with this agreement. Not a lot of substantive changes, but I think we've clarified responsibilities from both the city and our responsibility, and then some formatting changes. But other than that, I didn't see a lot that caused me a lot of concern, but go ahead. I'm sure there might be comments from the board.
Thank you, Chair Jones. For the record, David Peterson, Executive Director of the CTA. You are correct. Basically, the changes were to format this document a little bit differently to come in line with the way that the cooperative agreements between government agencies should be formatted. The one major change is, of course, adding fiscal 21. So this agreement now goes through fiscal 21, so it's fiscal 20 and fiscal 21. Other than that, we did make a couple of adjustments to the Exhibit A about a couple of different events that we are looking at bringing in during this next fiscal year. So we did include those in the respective months. But yeah, no substantive changes from the document that you all approved back in May.
Comments?
Yeah. When does the 1% for the Arts and Cultural Director position end? When does that 1% end?
June 1st, 2021.
So since this agreement goes for that final month, should we not have some language in here about, and I'm sorry I didn't see that beforehand, but I just thought about it subsequent to the comment period we had. So should we add some language that indicates that our fiscal 21 payment to the city for that position would be less a month's prorated revenue?
So
Otherwise, are we not obligated, if we follow this, to pay the full amount for that year?
so when I spoke with Adriana about that, she said no, that would not be required to make that final payment for the month of June.
But if the agreement doesn't say it, then we
could add something in there, I guess.
I mean, we already know that Adriana's not going to be with the city any longer. So if other changes happen, who's going to know that's the only thing I would suggest we add, because I thought the timing of that was I thought the timing of that was closer to being on. I don't see any harm in putting that language in, and I don't know why we would get pushback from the city on it.
Ben Johnson, Deputy District Attorney for the record. I don't see a problem with adding language to that effect.
So where would we add that, Ben? In the financial section? Or do you want a second to look through and figure out where it should go?
And can you, just for clarification, can you repeat the language something along the lines that you
Well,
want to add?
Yeah, so it should say something like, let me find the finance section. Give me 1 second. Give me a number.
Okay. The term A is finance, services provided by the city, and it falls in number 9 on that line item there. It says, city will transfer 1% of the transit.
Right, okay.
Cultural arts fund inside the CTA.
So I think I would just say, city will transfer,
On approval.
well, I think I would say city would transfer 1% of the transient occupancy tax for the Arts and Cultural Fund as directed by CTA through May 31st, 2021. That seems simple enough to me.
Ben, would these changes require this document then to come back to us in a prior meeting?
No. So what will happen is if you make any changes on the record today, you can approve them, and then it'll go to the Board of Supervisors on
With those
Thursday for
changes.
approval. So assuming that they accept your changes, then we would be done. If they don't, then it would come back for you to approve the agreement as approved by the board.
And I'll just comment anyway, it could come back anyway, because someone on the board could suggest yet another change to this. We don't know that, but, yeah, I mean, if discussion's done, I'm willing to make a motion.
Stacy, can I just clarify? So we're talking about, I know in the packet it's page 2, but of the actual document, page 1, where it says
It's
whereas.
It's page 2, well, if there's another spot, then.
Page,
Okay, page 1.
I believe it's on page 3 of 14, if you look at the bottom right, and it's number 9.
Oh, it's also on 1 as well. That's where he's
Yeah, it's in
referring to.
I
the,
think it's,
Under the whereas.
I think it's okay there, because it's still, I'll defer to Ben, but I think in the recitals, you're generally correct. I think the detail is in the terms. That's my opinion.
That's correct. And before you do have a motion, there's just a couple other small changes that I need to add to the record.
Okay. Yeah, so David, I think just in section 1A, sub IX,
Or 9.
9, Roman numeral 9.
Perfect, thank you.
Go ahead, Ben.
Ben Johnson, Deputy District Attorney for the record. Just a few other changes, very minor. If we're looking at, and I'm looking at the number in the middle, page 1, under the first paragraph, the last sentence, we're adding a comma after city and CD, between city and CCDA.
Can you say that? Where is that
Where is
again?
this?
It's at the end of the very first paragraph, under the title, last sentence,
Oh, got
there's
it.
a comma between city
Got
and
it, got it.
CCDA.
Okay.
Under the second whereas clause on the same page, we're adding whereas city, comma, CCDA, and CTA are public agencies.
Okay.
Okay.
And then again, looking at the number in the middle of the page on page 8, section 4. That should read section 6, termination, not section 5. And then on page 12, the signature page, we're removing the words attest between, or excuse me, above the signature lines for both the clerk and the secretary. And those are all the changes that I had.
Any other comments? Concerns? Comments or concerns from the board? All right. I guess we're looking for a motion to approve with the proposed additions and changes.
Yeah, I got it. I move to approve the cooperative agreement between Carson City and the Carson City Cultural and Tourism Authority for Administrative Services and Facility Use and Management, funded by 2% of the total 11% transient lodging tax rate, with the changes read into the record by Deputy District Attorney, and with the addition to Section 1A IX of the words through May 31, 2021 at the end of that sentence.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Moving on to item 9, discussion and possible action regarding the commercial lease agreement with Carson City Square Incorporated for a total amount of $112,136. David, do you want to
Thank you, Chair
briefly
Jones.
go over that?
Yeah, so the lease that you have in your packet in front of you right now for the $112,136 covers us from September 15, 2019 through June 30th, 2021. So it's the rest of fiscal 20 and fiscal 21. And then it gives us renewal options for 3 subsequent fiscal years. And so if the board and we look at maybe some purchase of a building for us to relocate into, this will give us some time to do that. Obviously, if we don't find something, we'll have these automatic renewals built in to this particular lease, as long as we give a 90-day advance notice prior to years 3, 4, and 5. So with that, the last page shows you 7? Oh, yeah, okay. And then we do need to make a correction on Exhibit A to have this be 7-1, so where it's fiscal 22, 23, 24, those just need to say 7-1, so we will fix those, not 7-15 for the 3 fiscal years, so we will get that changed. So with that, I can entertain any questions that you might have about the lease.
No, I think they've been very flexible with us, easy to work with. I didn't see anything that's,
No, I will say that Kaplan, Steve, and Wendy have been
right.
very flexible in terms of understanding what how our needs may change moving forward and working out something that allows us some flexibility for years 3, 4, and 5. So I really do appreciate that.
Any concerns, questions from the board?
None.
A motion to approve?
I move to approve the commercial lease agreement between Carson City Culture and Tourism Authority and Carson City Square LLC.
I'll second. I assume you mean with the changes noted?
Changes noted.
With the changes noted.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. All right. Moving on to item number 10, for presentation only, presentation by destination analyst, Mr. David Bratton. Thanks for coming today. I know David's got someone. I would ask that, I think it's a 15, 20-minute, presentation, and I would like to hold questions till the end. I think it'll move a little quicker that way instead of stopping and starting, if that's okay with David. And David?
That works for me. And just before I introduce Mr. Bratton, this is follow-up to the industry partner research that we did. So if you recall, we did several one-on-one, some qualitative interviews with tourism industry partners in Carson City, and then we did some follow-up quantitative research with those folks. This is now the consumer piece of this, of visitors, potential folks that were inquiring for materials in the past to come and visit Carson City. So with that, I'd like to introduce David Bratton, the founder and managing director of Destination Analysts, and he's going to walk us through the traveler opinion survey that he helped us put together. So with that, Dave, I'll have it. You take over.
Thank you, David. Thanks for having me here today. I'm excited to present this data to you. Just as a little background, my company works with DMOs around the world, about 170 different destinations from big cities to states to smaller communities like your own. And this was a really fun project to go out and talk to the people who had reached out to your organization in the past and given, contact information and the right to go back and talk to them later, opt in that way. So what you're going to see here is something we do for a lot of clients because it's a cost-effective, cheap way to talk to people, a wide variety of people who have an affinity for your destination. And one of the reasons David and I decided to use this list is Carson City's, where it sits in a national, what's the right word? But compared to many destinations, it's probably not top of mind, I'll put it that way. It's a smaller destination. It's not a Yellowstone or a Los Angeles or a New York City. So we thought using this list would be a better way to get to people who actually know about you and can speak intelligently about you compared to a nationally representative sample, for example. So, and I think you'll see that in this data. Definitely, it's a group of people that have an affinity for Carson City. And it was an online survey, basically, using this proprietary list that we conducted in June and July of people who interacted in any way with the link of the survey. 51% of them completed the survey, and in total we have 415 completed surveys in the sample I'm going to show you today. The confidence interval of that data is plus or minus about 5%, so fairly standard in market research is at 400 sample size. So I'm not going to show you any digging in and looking at subsamples here, just the top line results. So one of the interesting things that stuck out to me immediately in this data was that the typical person on your list, the people that have come to you for help planning their trip, took 6.6 leisure trips in the past year. This is about 50% higher than the national norm. And what you'll see, I think, when you look at national data is that people who travel a lot, like this group of people, tend to take a lot of smaller trips. They'll take their big trips once or twice during the year, but then they get out and take smaller trips. And I just wanted to point that out because what you're going to see later in the data is a definite, when they think about Carson City, they're thinking about a shorter trip. Okay, so these are people that probably are taking a lot of shorter trips to make that number be up so high compared to the national norm. The sample I'm showing you is from a wide variety of locations. We asked them where they live. You can see about 1 in 5 lives in Reno, but the rest are spread out all over, with a good chunk of them coming from California, San Francisco, LA, Sacramento as 3 of the top 4 feeder markets based in this data. And then around the West, it's a widespread group of people, just so you know who we're looking at here. And also, I'm not going to show you the demographics, but it's a very demographically diverse group of people that are in this sample as well. So I think it's something that'll give you some good directional information as Dave moves his marketing forward. So this first question, we asked him about, well, what are you into? What kind of travel? How appealing do you find different types of trips in general when you go out there? And the most appealing type of trip for this group were national parks and state parks. At the very bottom were major cities. And this I found really interesting, and I think it's something you ought to think about carefully, because if you look at a national sample of leisure travelers, this is going to be flip-flopped with the major cities. When we ask on national surveys where you're most excited to travel, Vegas, Orlando, New York, LA, San Francisco, they're always way at the top. But this group of people that have come to you are looking for something else, a different type of experience, obviously, with the scene, and you'll see this later in what they want in destinations as well. Sorry, I hit the wrong button there. And this is exactly where we're going here. We asked them, well, what in general, we gave them a list of destination attributes, we'll call it. And how do you select where you go? What do you look for when you're picking a place to go? And you can see the top 2 box scores here, which means they said it was either important or very important, were scenic beauty, the overall ambiance of the place, affordability, safety, lots to see and do in a place for relaxation, followed by historic attractions. And this is historic attractions here, 4 out of 5 said that's important to them. That's quite different than what you'll see in the national norm as well. I would expect in a national survey for that to be around 40 to 50%. So when you start thinking about the psychographics of your people, history is important to them. We asked them where they were likely to visit in the next 2 years, and Carson City performed very well, right up there with Tahoe, Reno, and other Nevada destinations. So there's definitely, the group is looking at the destination for future travel. And they have some familiarity with you too. Now you need to take this with a little bit of grain of salt. I always counsel my clients to never underestimate how little people know about the world they travel in. It's shocking when you actually talk to people about what they know about our country and the destinations, and it's not a lot, but they have a sense that they're familiar with you and what you have to offer. And we actually asked about a variety of attributes. Well, how familiar are you with each of these? And what you see here are the proportions that said they were either familiar or very familiar with Carson City. Its scenic beauty, nearby attractions, ambiance and atmosphere, and the railway were the top most familiar, the destination attributes they were most familiar with. One of the things down there at the bottom that David was talking about earlier was mountain biking trails. And one of the things I just wanted to make sure you were aware of here is that because it's going to show up low on a lot of these things, that does not mean you can't make a lot of money off mountain bikers. It's just not a lot of people do it. It's a little bit like golf. It can be great for a destination, but only 1 in, 20 of us actually are golfers. So similar situation there with the biking. They find Carson City appealing when we asked them, how to rate it, and like I said, these are people with an affinity for you. Almost all of them at least gave it a slightly appealing rating. Only a couple percent said it was an unappealing destination. When then we looked at their attributes and he said, well, in your opinion, how would you rate it for each of these attributes? And you saw these on the list earlier. Your top attributes in terms of the proportion of people that said you're good or very good were scenic beauty and historical attractions, buildings, attributes, the overall ambiance, affordability, safety of the place. So let's go back thinking about what you just saw in what terms of what people thought was important to them and how they pick a place to go. You have a destination attribute set that's very similar to that for this group. Now here's the slide I wanted you to think about earlier with that first slide about the number of trips people take. We asked how interested you'd be in visiting Carson City for each of these types of trips. And again, you see the percent that's interested or very interested. Weekend getaway, by far, and extended weekend were by far the most selected here as something they'd be interested in. Day trips then, but the least was vacations with only about 40% saying that they'd find that interesting or very interesting. Makes total sense in terms of it being a smaller destination, and perhaps people that see it as a place with, not enough quite to do a full vacation here. But when you have a group of people who are taking a lot of smaller trips, that presents a lot of potential for a place like Carson City. We asked about the best attributes. Pick the 3 best attributes of Carson City from our list again. Number 1, historical attributes, the railway, scenic beauty, and even casinos shows up here. But you can see they're starting to, the picture of who they see you to be is starting to form here, right? You're beautiful and you have great history. Then we have some words. Well, what words describe Carson City? Historic, affordable, and welcoming. All great attributes to be associated with. Uncrowded, easy to get to at the top. Down at the bottom, we have cultured, diverse, and romantic. A little different perspective there. We also asked some negative words. Touristy, bland, hard to get to were the only ones that came anywhere near 10%, but still, the vast majority of people who filled out our survey said none of these describe Carson City, which is a good thing. And I can tell you, if you ask this for one of the big cities that we talk about, there'd be a lot more negativity expressed. So that's good news for you all. In terms of who we're talking to here again, about 1 in 4 said that they had visited Carson City in the past 2 years. And then if you look at the dark blue section there, we asked those people who hadn't been in 2 years, well, have you been here in the past 5 years? And about 42% of them had come. So overall, in this group of people, about 2/3 had been here at some point in the past 5 years. So again, this is driving the familiarity and the appeal, obviously. Then we asked a question, have you visited any of these other Nevada cities or areas in the past 2 years? And you can see there's a lot of activity here. So again, as you position yourself as the centerpiece of a region with lots to see and do, you can see that there's a lot of activity in Reno, South Lake Tahoe, even Virginia City, almost twice as much as Carson City in that earlier question. So we asked some questions about what kind of recall they have about your promotional activities or any promotional advertising related to Carson City. About 1/3 said that they had seen something in the past 12 months about Carson City. Okay, well, where did they see it? And again, one thing to keep in mind here, I'm going to go back to that last question. We're only looking at 35% of the 400 sample when we move to this next slide, so it's a small subsample. About half said they'd seen something in print. About half said they think they'd seen something in online, and similar amounts on social media. So, and then we asked them a really interesting question, like, well, to the best of your recollection, who was it that promoted Carson City here? And you can see by far the biggest one is the city's official tourism office, Carson City Cultural and Tourism Authority. One thing I want to point out to you here, we added that parenthetical with the understanding that most people wouldn't have any clue who you are. And to be frank, about 5 or 6 years ago, there was a big change in the DMO industry where most DMOs went away from a Convention and Visitors Bureau name to, Visit Carson City, whatever it might be. And just as a little background, we did a lot of research for a number of destinations on this topic. And it was a movement that happened because there was a kind of a lot of uncomfort with certain groups of people, especially younger travelers, with words like Convention and Visitors Bureau, which felt like it was out of touch with where they wanted to get their information from. So DMOs were kind of onto this, and they moved to this new naming convention. Some food for thought as you move forward if you ever want to consider that. So, okay. About 1 in 5 said they'd seen something on social media in the last year from their friends and relatives or other people with something to do with Carson City. And then we asked about Lake Tahoe. And again, the connection you have with your region and all the great things there are to do here is really clear, I think, in this data. Question simple. Prior to taking the survey, we were aware that part of Lake Tahoe is in Carson City County, Nevada. About 2/3 said yeah, 58.9%, which is surprising to me, but there's definitely this understanding that you're related, you have a close relationship with Tahoe. Then we asked him, well, understanding that it's so close, does this, fill in this blank here, basically. This makes visiting Carson City much more attractive to much less attractive. And you can see that being connected to Tahoe, 0.4% found it less attractive. So you see the vast majority find that that connection is a really strong positive attribute for Carson. We asked him, well, did you know that Carson City is the capital of Nevada? 88% said yes, and I'm just going to be silly at this point. But if we'd asked him, did you know that Sacramento is the capital of Nevada, you'd probably have a similar percent. But that's just going back to my point that people just don't know a lot about geography. But did you know that Carson City's downtown corridor was recently renovated? About a third, a little over, said that they were aware of this activity, which is great. And then finally, just in terms of, as one of your key goals, obviously, is heads and beds and generating room tax for the city. We asked him, well, where would you stay if you came here on a trip? We can see that hotel and motel are by far, comprise the majority of where they think they would stay. We asked how much they'd spend. Not a big spending group, most of them, the vast majority were under $150 a night. But for a smaller destination, that's not out of line with what the market usually sees. So not surprising to see that. So that is the end of the data from this, and happy to take any questions you guys have.
Questions from the board?
Yeah, I have one. I just, maybe I missed it. Where did the survey respondents come from again? Can you explain that
They
to
were
me?
basically the organization's list of people who had come for information, your email lists, your consumer trade shows. Is that right, David?
Yeah.
And so
Stacy.
where did we get that from?
Yeah.
Well, several sources that I'm aware of, people inquiring for a visitor guide or wanting to receive e-newsletters from us, from past shows as well that the team has went to. And Lydia, if you want to add to that.
Sure. So we had a compiled list of about 14,000 people going all the way back from to about 2009, all the way up until the present, where we've been collecting from Facebook and from online too. So it was a mix from quite a few years.
So how does that sort of slant the responses you get? Because obviously there's some understanding of us
Yes.
with these people before we even start.
Yes.
So how does that, can you relate to us
Yeah,
how
no,
we should look
absolutely.
at that in terms
I
of this
like
data?
I tried to say at the beginning, I think you're looking at a group of people that have an affinity for you in some way. And for the research purposes here, that may not be a bad thing. Because like I mentioned, if we had done a nationally representative sample, I can tell you the vast majority of people wouldn't know a single thing about Carson City, and they would not be able to really evaluate it well. So this is something a lot of DMOs will do. They'll do surveys of what they call their owned assets, in fancy speak, exactly what David just described. And it's usually something like this. It's usually regionally centered as one bias, if you want to call it that, or one effect of it, because people tend to travel near their homes. And you see that in your data. But all the other metrics in terms of the demographics, it seems like a fairly, widespread and representative sample of the type of people who travel. So
So if
I
we
don't know if that answers your question.
No,
but
it
yeah.
does. If we were sort of doing economic development, we would sort of look at this group as our existing manufacturers and maybe in the categories where we didn't score as high, those might be potential future clients for our teams to work on bringing those numbers up. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I think it would be. You could look at it as the companies that had approached you for information, that you'd met at trade shows, whatever, the people that are kind of have some affinity for this area and this place. So, yeah.
So we sort of have two ways we could go in terms of marketing to that existing group of people who already knows us.
Right.
But grabbing that untapped resource of the mountain bike community as an example, where we know we can sort of build on that and introduce them to the things that the other people like.
Yeah.
Is that Okay, thank you.
Yeah, clearly this research is not appropriate to evaluate the mountain biking community's interest in, it's just,
Yeah.
it's not meant
That's
for
not
that.
the traveler the 3 to 5 time trips.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
They're a different
the
animal
demographic.
entirely, yeah.
And Stacy, if I
I've-
can just
I
add,
found interesting that what's important to them is what's important to the community too. The scenic beauty,
Yeah.
that we're almost in alignment there, which, I don't know, like I said, we're playing to sort of, how would I call it? A packed house, or, we know them, so we
Friendly
kind of know
audience,
what we're gonna
yeah.
get from them.
Yeah.
Man, I just want to say this also leads to the favorable opinion of the repeat visitor. So if they have a favorable insight of Carson City, generally, they're more inclined to come back again in the future. So that's what that data gives us too.
I mean, you guys know that you're in one of the most beautiful regions of the world, the eastern side of the Sierra, and you've got tons of neat stuff going on nearby and in your destination. So if it came out the other way, that they didn't like you, they didn't find it appealing, that would be really problematic, for people who'd been here, so.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to tear the mountains down and build something else there.
Yeah, 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 exactly.
That's out of our budget.
Yeah, yeah.
Chair Jones, I just wanted to add something to what Stacy said. So this, I think, lines up very nicely. This was the last piece of research that leads into the development of our guiding principles, where you'll kind of see how we've addressed our audiences and then our niche audiences as well, because you're absolutely right. We have these folks who have visited here, and I think it's very important to understand why, do they come and visit and what's important to them. But then for those people that hadn't visited but had that familiarity with us, with Carson City, because they had inquired for materials, also understanding what's important to them as well. And obviously we can slice and dice this into those two categories. And I think that'll help with some of our messaging. And you'll see that in the guiding principles document from KPS 3 as well. But how do we approach these folks? What's important to them? So, and I don't want to get ahead of KPS 3 in terms of their presentation, but this was, extremely cost effective for us to do it this way, as Dave mentioned, because I think had we tried to do a syndicated piece of research, couple thousand completes, 10 markets maybe, 200 per. Dave and I talked about maybe getting less than 100 people, right? I mean, we would have even potentially had a statistically significant sample of people who had visited Carson City, right? So to get any feedback from them if they don't even know the destination wouldn't have made sense for us. So for right now, I think this, in terms of where we're at with the overall planning and guiding principles and working on brand and strategic planning, this fit in very nicely for right now. It's not to say down the road we can't look at doing some syndicated research on a national level or specific markets in the Western U.S., but this is what I needed sort of to help us.
It seems to me if we do that, we should do it after we've made efforts with, our marketing team and our changes on our website and, to measure the effect of that. And if we've been able to bring the numbers up in those categories where, we aren't showing up here.
Absolutely right. Yeah, this would be a couple, potentially, give us a couple of years, right, to get site up and running and then also get into these markets, right, that the CTA has not been in before, right? We need to get out there, get that awareness building on a digital level with the social media as well, and also from an owned perspective too on the PR front. So yeah, no, agreed. But I just wanted to reiterate why we did what we did, as Dave said, for right now. So in terms of the process and where we're at.
I have a question. So you said a lot of DMOs are moving away from the traditional CVB name to like a Visit Carson City. Is that in larger markets you're seeing that, or markets of our size?
All over, yeah. I don't know, 5, 6, 8 years ago, it became a thing. And the DMO community started pushing it. And, like I said, we've done research for West Hollywood, San Francisco, Gulf Shores, Hilton Head, Columbia, South Carolina, places like that related to this. And, keeping a name like your own is not a problem. But there's just a group of people out there, a significant 20% of them that probably are going to say, oh, that sounds too bureaucratic for me. I'm going to go get my, information from TripAdvisor. So that's kind of the genesis of it. And the only thing that we really found in the research that really mattered is that you put a credible front forward once you move, whether it's to visit Carson City or Carson City Tourism or whatever that name is. You just have to be you have to look authentic and legit and not like you're, shady in any way. The naming doesn't really matter, but yeah,
It's the perception of the name.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
thank you.
yeah.
So I have a question too. There is no way, well, let me just say, I think it would have been nice to have been able to track what age group this data was coming from.
Yeah.
Or did we?
We did, but in being sensitive to keeping the presentation shorter, there's a whole demographic set, so I'll send you that. Oh, yeah, we tore through the demographic side of this, yep. I will share that with the board. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Any other questions from the board? Well, David, thank you.
Yeah, thank you,
for coming
thank
here
you
today.
very
It was
much.
a nice
Yeah.
presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
To item 11, marketing update from KPS 3. David?
Thank you, Chair Jones. So in your packets, there is a document that contains the guiding principles. So Andy, Jenna, and Lindsay are going to do that presentation today. So again, all of the research that we've done to this point, the industry partner research and then the consumer research from David, sort of led us to this point in the process. The second part of KPS3's presentation will be a look at the sitemap for visitcarsoncity.com, and that's just to continue to move us forward with each of our board meetings. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our wonderful KPS3 team to walk us through the guiding principles document. And again, that's in your packets.
And just as an introduction, Andy Walden, VP of Client Strategy for KPS3.
I'm Jenna Hubert, Creative Director at KPS3. I'm Lindsay Crone, the Account Manager at KPS3.
All right. So to set up our guiding principles, we've gone through a bit of the research, and really what this bubbles into is our North Star for the creative side. And so this is generally an internal document that we leverage to ensure that everything's on strategy, to ensure that it speaks to the right audiences and really gives the personality that we want. And so with that, we're going to cover things like our personality, our brand pillars, and the audiences that we want to target. And so, but it is an internal document that we want to leverage to ensure that everything has that strategic foundation as we start looking at the website as well as the comms plan going forward. And so with that, I will let Jenna introduce the guiding principles.
Awesome. So to piggyback on what Andy mentioned, so this is truly going to be our guiding light moving forward. It is where we see the brand direction and strategy going, and it really just narrows our focus a little bit. So with that, let me read our introduction of Carson City. Carson City, the heart and history of Nevada, the state capital and the center point of a true Nevada experience. Wholesome and wide open, both in its ideals and space to wander. Maybe it's the pioneering spirit you can feel in the wind or the impressive landscape surrounding us, but there's something here that allows you to breathe deep and take it all in, recharging you as you prep for your next adventure. There's a sense of pride here. It's shared in friendly nods and in the stories of our history, and it extends an open invitation to find your Nevada experience in Carson City. Now, this is truly just our rally cry. This is the summary of what we found when we were speaking with you guys one-on-one, and from all of the research that we were able to gather, this is the vibe that we got from Carson City. What's this? Okay. So our charge, this is our ultimate goal. And that is to increase top-of-mind awareness for Carson City and position it as the Nevada destination to launch from to promote overnight stays. So again, creating it as more of a center point. This is our ultimate goal. And then we have several goals that will support this, but we know that this is, at the end of the day, our charge. This doesn't come without obstacles, and we just wanted to be very transparent about what we see those obstacles being. So Carson City is currently being passed by with a highway built around it, no commercial airport, and surrounding destinations competing for the same travelers. It's struggling a little bit to find its place on the map. And with no single defined reason to visit outside of being the capital and an aging primary audience, it's more important than ever to bring the vibrancy, hospitality, and diversity of offerings to the forefront of a traveler's mind. So again, we're just identifying the challenges here, knowing that we need to address these going forward and making sure that we are, basically squelching any of these perceptions. So we did break down some more defined goals, and these all support that overarching charge that we defined. So again, increasing the number of overnight stays in Carson City, developing the personality of Carson City that connects with our travelers, creating and executing a cross-channel strategic communications plan that will guide our focus and actions to most effectively tell the Carson City story. Building a digital presence around the Carson City personality, amenities, attractions, arts, culture, and history. This would include lodging as well. And developing an easy web portal for local stakeholders to manage their presence on the website, making that easy for them to update. We'll also be creating a nurture strategy based on consumer interests to continue to keep Carson City top of mind and ultimately inspire a visit. And then building awareness of the destination for drive and flight markets. All right, so our brand pillars. So this is what we've identified as the ideals and traits that can truly support our brand. We know that we can build our brand on these 5 elements. The first being our rich history. So Carson City cares deeply about all sides of its history and putting those stories at the forefront for visitors to discover. And then we did include several proof points for each of these brand pillars, again, making sure that we know that this can be supported. So we are the state capital, we have the Carson City Mint, the Stewart Indian School, the V&T Railway, the Nevada State Railroad Museum, just Mark Twain generally, all the stories around him and the locations you can spot around Carson City where he had a presence. The historic West Side neighborhood and the Kit Carson Trail, mining, and the Nevada State Museum. So very clearly supported brand pillar and one that is also very important to our audiences. The second one, and there are 5, the second one is heritage and cultural influence. So from modern to historic, Carson City puts on wonderful displays of the arts and continues to foster that within its community. And this is supported by the Brewery Arts Center, the public art around Carson City that you can see, museums, theater productions. It's pretty clear once you get into the city and you're exploring that heritage and cultural influence is very important to this community. Third, and this really was something that we gleaned from all of our one-on-one conversations and talking to people around town, was that it's a very inclusive community. And this includes the day that we spent here, just talking to all of the locals and experiencing all of some of the attractions. So Carson City, it truly celebrates progress within its community. It prides itself on its quality of life, and it is open to bringing in all types of events and visitors with open arms. If you are a visitor in Carson City, you are truly a friend. Most of the people that we talk to, almost everyone that we talk to is extremely forward-thinking, including your mayor, which is great. There's a high quality of life here, and you can't deny the charm and hospitality that Carson City has, and truly in the downtown experience as well. Carson City is family friendly, and we thought that this one was an important pillar to bring out, especially when you're considering the surrounding areas. Having your very pedestrian friendly downtown is a huge asset when you're thinking of comparing it to nearby destinations. So it's a safe and clean community as well, which is extremely important to our audiences that we've identified. And there are a variety of events throughout the year. So it lends itself to a really perfect family getaway. And this is supported by having a ton of kid-friendly events. It's very accessible. There are a variety of dining options. This is where the sports tournaments that you guys are hosting really comes in as well. And it being a walkable and certified bike-friendly destination as well. And lastly, there is room to discover and wander in Carson City. Carson City still captures the spirit of the West with sagebrush-covered hillsides, desert sunsets, alpine lakes, and towering mountains. It truly inspires adventure and exploration here. So this is supported by our biking, hiking, and mountain sports, our nearby destinations that are definitely already included in that outdoor itinerary. Lake Tahoe being part of Carson as well, and just that Wild West nature that's really captured in this room to discover and wander. And while we don't put a pin on anything specifically, all of these really do support that outdoor enthusiast traveler. So all of that, all of our brand pillars really culminate into this brand positioning, which is that Carson City is a relaxed, family-friendly destination that provides travelers with a place to call home as they explore the history and natural wonder of Northern Nevada. And this really speaks to it being that hub. So being able to be in Carson City, a place to rejuvenate, relax, plan your next, if you want to do a day trip or you want to stay here, that's truly what this positioning is speaking to. And then lastly, we have our promise. And again, I want to reiterate that this is an internal document. We're not proposing a new tagline or anything of that nature here, but our promise, we know that this is something that we can deliver on, and that is that Carson City is the heart of Nevada. We really, truly hold it. Through our warm greetings, our rich history, and our diverse, majestic landscapes, Carson City is a place you want to stay. It holds the heartbeat of Nevada and is where our Western history was forged. We are the center point of the Nevada experience. And then we did identify some of our voice, and this is the way that we envision speaking to our visitors. It's going to be our guide in all of our communications and captures the personality of Carson City. So we are friendly and laid back, and we have no room for pretense. We value genuine conversation and genuine people, and we are never part of a fad or an extreme. So basically, we're not hipsters. We are knowledgeable about Nevada history, and we are happy to share all sides of that with our visitors. We are open to trying new things and encouraging our guests to follow our lead. But we like to take things at a slower pace and are happy to give our adrenaline junkies a map to nearby places they can get their thrills. We are old school, but not out of touch, and that just means we have character and a lot of good stories. And we are pure Nevada. And I think everyone in this room kind of knows what that means. And that's that we're a little untamed and independent, but incredibly friendly and welcoming.
So next we have our audiences. So through our discovery and secondary research, we discovered that there's two main audiences that we will target. The first is the older weekday travelers. Retirees are traveling all the time. And when they travel, they want to take their time, they want to avoid crowds, and they value relaxation and rejuvenation. It's also important to note that they are interested in multi-generational travel, so they want a destination that's family-friendly. The second audience is the millennial families. The millennial families are traveling more than other generations. in the past. They want quality time, relaxation, and most importantly, safety and convenience. It's important to note that as a family, they're traveling to, and they want to avoid the metropolitan areas, and they're attracted to destinations that are easy to get to.
I'd say to add to the millennial families, that really speaks to the tournaments side as well. We know that that's a huge opportunity as well as bringing in additional tournaments here. And that's what we saw across the research is that's really why families are here. And so being able to extend them to that natural additional stay is really what the focus will be on to not only enjoy the tournament, but can we get them to basically enjoy the Sunday after the tournament and to be able to explore Carson City.
And then we also discover that there's other segments that are a secondary audience. So we'll be using these audiences during content development. These audiences include business travelers. These are the people that are already here for business, but we want to encourage them to extend their stay and also recommend Carson City to their friends and family. We have the capital chasers that are going around the country to all the capital cities, and the accessibility and the beauty of the Carson City Capitol building is important to them. Appealing to them. Then we have the railway buffs, and these are people that are seeking the history of railways. Then there's the Highway 50 trekkers that can either use Carson City as their first or last stop to get their passport stamped. And then we have mountain bikers. So although we've just learned earlier that this is a smaller targeted audience, this is important to help highlight that Carson City does have the trails and events for this audience.
All right, so then moving into the overall website side, we wanted to see what this essentially looks like. And so,
Do we want to pause, just allow for questions from the board on the guiding principles before we get into the website? If that's okay, Chair Jones?
This time, board have questions on the presentation to this point? You know, I like it. It all comes back to the hub. I like the brand pillars. I think that speaks to who we are and what the information we've told you. It's the important part is, I know David wanted to stop here. For me, the important part is getting out at the webpage and getting that moved. But I think it speaks to Carson City. I know I'll let some other.
I have a question. So David, this is probably more directed towards you and your staff. On the rich history side, you guys noted about the AKA Blue Line, which the AKA Blue Line, it is past history. There's nothing there to help identify our travelers that come, but yet it's always been a major aspect of people. I mean, I see them just working downtown. I see people all over looking around. Now that Blue Line's gone, what do we have something in place to keep that?
David speak to that. We've had some conversation regarding that in the last few days.
It's been identified here as well.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So we're going to retool the entire visitor experience related to the Kit Carson Trail, because you're right, it's no longer the Blue Line. We're working with the Chamber on that. We'll be working with Historic Preservation Society here in Carson City as well. New collateral, a new immersive experience on the website as well, integrating the audio that we already have if we need, as we look at the properties. We're not going to send people out there thinking that they can cover 45 or 50 properties, right? We're going to identify what we think, again, working with our partners, what those 20 to 25 properties look like for an hour and a half to 2 hour experience, which is realistically what a visitor is going to do when they're out there. We know that also from what Debbie Lane does when she takes tour groups out there. In an hour and a half, she's able to get to, on average, maybe 11 houses. Again, more people, right, if you have a group out there, so questions come up. But yeah, we're reimagining this entire experience. Printed collateral, the piece itself, integration into the new visitor guide that'll come out in January, and then the website. And the way I see this, is we don't need multiple pieces of material out there. I want to keep the experience, whether you see it on the website, you see it in a visitor's guide, or you come into our office and you want the printed piece in your hand. It's the same message, right? And so that's what I've asked the team to look at. Put your visitor, lenses, goggles on, and let's go out and work with our partners to figure out what's the appropriate way. How do we take these folks out to hit these most historic properties, that mean the most to Carson City's history and Nevada's history. And so that's the approach that we're taking.
Okay, well, just, can you add to your list of resources, the Downtown Business Association? Okay.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Mike. Yeah, absolutely.
Relative to that, it is part of what you're planning to do, maybe a downloadable, well, two questions. Is part of what you're doing something downloadable on a phone that people can read so that's the first question. Then secondly, are we looking at some kind of identification at the site, a medallion or a sign or something that ties that number to the guide?
So the answer to the first question is yes, but it won't be an app. So this will be developed out with the website, so it'll be a responsive website that works on your phone. So we don't need a separate app to do this. It'll be self-contained on visitcarsoncity.com. So answer to question one, yes. Question two, we have had conversation with the chamber about the medallion piece. And right now, the answer on the medallions, as far as the CTA's involvement, is no. There is no money from the chamber, not from the chamber, excuse me, but from RAC for any kind of match as it relates to medallions, which I was told there would be no medallions by Public Works to go in the concrete, but like a placard or something like that. We don't have access to any money through RAC for those placards, and there also is not a SHPO money either. So, State Historic Preservation Office, money for placards of any kind. So, in talking with Chair Jones, we're going to focus really on the marketing side of the Kit Carson Trail with the materials and the website, not the infrastructure side of it at this point.
My 2 cents worth is that's a mistake, but I'm one person. But I think we should try and find a way to identify those properties. I think we're missing an opportunity because people will see that and wonder what that is and perhaps pursue the website. We spend a lot of money on a lot of things. It seems to me we could find some money to pay for some plaques, but
I agree.
That's just my 2 cents worth.
So we're gonna, following on what Stacy said, we're gonna build all this, but there's no identifiers. So I feel like it's kind of a half project. You know what I mean? Like building it and bringing people to it, but then I'm wandering around. Where am I going? What am I looking at? I think it's not complete.
Well, and the thing is we still have an elderly traveling population that comes here. I mean, we know that. We see that. And those are the ones that we have, I feel like we've just neglected them. We've basically, by removing the blue line, has taken that element and has made it more difficult for the elderly, because that's what I see as well when I'm out. So we need to find a way to complete the project and to include that age group.
Well, I'm not saying I disagree. What I disagree with is we're not the agency that can put those placards in or those medallions or maintain them. Our job is to market that, and until there's money for that, and there's no money in the CTA for that, to build that and to maintain it, and so far there's been no appetite from anyone else. Would it be fair to say that, David?
Correct, yeah, and I can tell you the quotes that we have, or the quote that we have in the office is over $40,000 was a previous quote that was provided for those placards, I guess, and not medallions in the concrete, but the signage piece where I guess you'd put it on a post in the property.
I'm thinking Monarch can do it for much cheaper than that. I don't know.
How much less?
I would be happy to put
41,000?
together a cost estimate and see how I can beat that number. And yeah, well, I will definitely look into that just on my own.
I mean, I guess part of what I'm struggling with is if somewhere someone's got to grab the bull by the horns and say, look, this is going to be a project that we're going to take under our wing and we're going to do. And either we're going to do that, or to me, we don't do it. We don't do it. We don't put it out there. We don't put it on our website. Because to say that, and understand what you're saying, Mike, to say that we're going to do this part, but somebody else has got to do that part, just doesn't make sense to me. So, if we can find 40 grand is a lot of money. I wouldn't advocate spending 40 grand, but it seems to me there are less expensive ways to do it. And I would just like us to explore owning it. This is a non-action item, but that's just my 2 cents worth. Or just back away from it entirely and let somebody else pick it up.
I would like to have the opportunity to at least look into some possible solutions for the signage, okay?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mike.
And David, have you explored any grant options, like through the Historical Society or any organizations like that to help fund that?
So SHPO is a no. Through State Historic Preservation, no. RACC is a no. The other options we look at would be the state and aka Travel Nevada. I could look at the Regional Trails Program, RTP, through, who's that through? State Parks, sorry. It's a federal thing, but through state parks. But I do believe it would only qualify under the education piece, as far as the different grant programs, I guess, that they have. And I have looked into that, but I believe there's also an issue where we can't use state money, technically speaking, to match state money, even though the FHA is federal money, but it's administered by state parks. So we're either sort of one or the other. So then the alternative is we're putting in our own money, right? If we can't leverage one grant program against another, then we've got to put in CTA money against that on a 50 or a half match, I guess I should say. So there are a couple of other options out there.
But if there's another entity involved that's not basically CTA related, that could possibly work into the grant funding process, right? Like perhaps
believe
maybe
that's
the
right.
Downtown Business Association being that,
Sure.
okay.
Yeah, like in terms of a match, you mean
Yes,
perhaps, yeah.
exactly, yes.
I think, and I was going to talk to Debbie Lane as well. I don't know if the Carson City, Historical Preservation Society would be something similar to the DBA, and maybe they would be willing to put up some money as well to do that match. And then I could, on behalf of the CTA, apply for the grant through Travel Nevada or that education one. I think it's going to be one or the other, right? The other thing too, and I can look into this as well, is Public Works, because obviously we're not the city, so we can't install the signs, we don't maintain the signs or have anything to do with that, but maybe that could be considered a match as well, the installation cost, right, through Public Works, through the city Public Works group, so.
So we can discuss this.
Yeah.
I did have another question. Under the heritage and cultural influence, so this is all of this is an internal document? I just want to confirm that all of this is an internal document? Or under this brand pillar, is that something that's going to be posted and put out there?
This would be an internal document.
Okay. All right. I want to make sure that we're not, I don't know that we're missing anybody, but I want to make sure we're not missing anybody. Because when you start listing organizations like the Brewery Arts Center, which is an organization, and the rest of these are not organizations, I have a little bit of a concern that you're calling out one organization and that we're missing many other organizations. So I just would ask that either we take that out, or we work with staff to make sure we're being inclusive about heritage and cultural influences that fit into that are sort of brand names. Does that make sense?
I can speak to that too. I already had that conversation with Mark Salinas in identifying those, so these are more just examples in internal use, and we already have that arts and culture side already built out, identifying those organizations. So this is just
Okay,
more for the
I
internal
just don't
guide.
want someone to see something and be slighted about,
Totally understand.
you know, that we're calling out one organization here, and the Greenhouse Project, as an example, is not on here.
Right.
And they do tremendous things, you know, it's just one example that came to my head.
Sure.
So,
And if I could, Stacy, this wasn't meant to be an exhaustive list because we could have filled a page or two or three for each of
I
the
get
brand
that.
pillars.
I get
but-
there's just one
Yeah.
organization that's called out, and
Right,
the rest
right.
are concepts.
Yep.
And that just stood out to me.
Yeah, we might change that maybe even to say concerts or something like that, you know, swap it out, just for the purpose of this document.
That's a good point.
Yep, thank you.
Any other?
Just quickly, I know on our voice, it can be maneuvered to use for the older traveler, the millennial. Obviously, they're different entities and we speak to them differently. Is it kind of like two separate campaigns, or are you trying to figure out how to speak to both of them through the same outlets?
Yeah, so for that, we'd want, truly one voice we're speaking to all travelers to, but just keeping in mind when we are gathering content or making spaces on the website that we're including those audiences. But we'd like to have one resounding voice that sounds the same no matter who we're speaking to.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
All right. Let's move into the website. So with everything that we were able to present from the guiding principles, this really informed the overall structure of the website. The first point then showing the homepage priorities. And so this is written pretty small, but essentially we want a person who basically is at our front door, and we want to highlight the beautiful imagery and video of the environment that we live in. It is a wonderful place to live and breathe. And so we want to highlight that, and then we also want to highlight the history. As we just found out from David, the consumer also has spoke the same things. Those were one of the three or two of the three largest assets that Carson City has to offer. And we want to be able to present that as basically the first experience when they come to the website. The second piece was really going off that hub concept. So really showing the distances to these other wonderful areas that are outside of Carson City to hopefully push people to be able to book a hotel, stay overnight with us, because they have access to Tahoe, they have access to Reno, they can go to Virginia City, they can go to even Fallon and some of these other areas. And so why not stay in Carson City when we're basically an hour away from everything? And we want to be able to have the traveler to understand that quickly and easily. The third piece is really combined with things to do, and that's going to be represented within itineraries and then even showing some type of visual representation of the top things to do in Carson City. Because we did see from how people are navigating the website prior is that people are looking for things to do. And whether they're here on the family tournament side, whether they're here on from a governmental side of being here for business, they're still looking for one thing to do outside of their normal day, whether it's walking distance, whether it's just a quick 10-minute drive to be able to enjoy their journey while they're in Carson City. And we want to make that as easily as possible to find. The next piece is exploring Carson City like a local. So travel and tourism, people love to hear stories from the local side, and we feel that this could be an ongoing piece that gets switched out to where we can hear from people like the mayor, or even hear the story between the Shoe Tree Brewing and just seeing how they were able to build their foundation. And so, or it could be someone who is really just an avid visitor of the railways. And so there's a lot of opportunities that we can switch this out. And so we want this to be a constant rotating piece, perhaps each quarter, that we have a new local to talk about the experiences that they envision themselves within Carson City. And then featured events, there are a lot of wonderful events here, whether that be the summer concert series to the Nevada Day Parade. We want to make sure that the traveler is coming here and being like, oh, I never considered coming here for Nevada Day. What's going on there? And then hopefully they can book another overnight stay with us. And then finally, featured content that'll be highlighted on the homepage as well, whether we're talking about something as seasonal as checking out the fall colors, or something that has a little bit more of an evergreen page such as hiking, we want to be able to switch that out and have new content ongoing on the homepage. And so our next step will be to be able to show you what that looks in more of a visual process rather than content, but essentially those are our thoughts on the things that we want to highlight on the homepage.
Given that what destination analysis just presented us relative to Lake Tahoe, I seldom see actual pictures of Lake Tahoe in Carson City anywhere. And I would really like to see that the pictures we have of Lake Tahoe are not just generic pictures of Lake Tahoe, but Chimney Beach and Skunk Harbor right from in Carson. So we can identify that on the website. So I think that's really important. The rest of the pictures that he had in his presentation, you had in yours, are wonderful pictures, by the way. But I just don't want a generic Lake Tahoe picture. I think we should really show a picture of our beach.
No.
If I may, Chair Jones, yeah, we plan on doing that, and we're talking about using the GIS coordinates, right, for Skunk Harbor and Chimney Beach, exactly those sorts of things. So it's the Carson City part of Lake Tahoe, or 6.2% or whatever, until we can grow that to be a little bigger. But yeah, we plan on doing that.
At our Board of Supervisors, being our last Board of Supervisors meeting, we had a presentation from Tahoe Transportation Authority and the state. Excuse me. And so the next part of that multi-use path or trail at Lake Tahoe, they're focusing on the portion from Sand Harbor to the intersection of Highway 50 and State Route 28. So that's the next part, and they'll be adding parking. So if you go to the website, if you go to the city's website for the board meeting, the first board meeting of this month, was it the 1st or 2nd of August? There's the board packet is there, and there are pictures showing where they're going to have, so they're expanding parking in total. I'm going by memory here, is going to be like 550 added parking spots between Highway 28 and Sand Harbor. So 550 added spots. And they'll be linking that with a bus that will take people for free from the parking spot to stops along the way. So there will be stops for the beaches in Carson. So it's probably,
Great news.
2021, 2022 before they start, but it's a big project. And for anyone who's seen the path from Incline to Sand Harbor, you know the quality of that path. So to me, this is a great, ties right into everything we've heard already.
And I would suggest for pictures too, maybe soliciting the locals, that go to these beaches, and you're probably going to find they have some great pictures.
Yeah,
People have to have clothes on, though.
Touche, Susie,
I don't want those high
touche.
school pictures from.
Yeah, Mike.
We can send you separate pictures, Mike.
Yeah, we have gotten a lot of play on social media from Skunk Harbor and people tagging us already. So it's been fun to see that those are things that we can incorporate, and that will be kind of fed into the Instagram feed that'll likely be on the page as well.
All right, so then moving into the sitemap, we will cover just the overall high-level structure, and then we'll get into more of the detail. But this screen right here really shows I would say the overall framework of where we're headed for the website. And you can see that the first lead is Nevada's historic capital. And we wanted to highlight this because we're proud of it being the capital. There's so much to do here from the history side, from the governmental side, just from the places that you can visit as attractions. And we want to make sure that it's easy for people to find that information and then explore further. The next piece is things to do. And so this is going to be things like the trails for mountain biking and hiking. This is going to show what you can do in the Carson River. And so these are really things to do that people can go outside of specifically the historic capital, but might be a little bit of crossover. The next piece is how we essentially get funded, the places to stay. And so we want to show the great places that we have to offer, whether people are looking for the boutiques or whether they're looking for their standard hotels, an easy place to find that information, and then jump off to go to that specific hotel's website. Fourth is the amazing food and drink that we have here. From the breweries to the unique restaurants, we really want to highlight the locals restaurants here and give them that and highlight that experience. And so people can quickly find that information between food and drink. And then finally, the event section and showing that this is not only the featured events, but they'll also have access to all the local events. There will be what we're envisioning is a filter between both. So people, for a visitor, can go in and saying, great, I know exactly when the top events are, but then a local can go in and saying, great, here's all the locals events when we have people that are living here want to see overall what people are doing around them. So this broken out is a more thorough section, but know that for example, if everything isn't presented under the places to stay, that continually can grow as well. So as we're adding new places to stay, there will be more properties under here. And then in addition to that, you will have the ability to continually add, edit, update from the back end if there is something that does come up as well. So, but this is really just to give a little bit more of a detailed view of what we envision once we're about to launch.
And can I just add, what you're seeing is the closed view, right?
Mm-hmm.
These all expand down, right? And there's a lot of detail behind these. I don't know, we don't have the live link, do we, to be able to show that, or do we? No, okay. But I just want you to know, so what you're seeing here, when you click on attractions, right, you're going to get a whole subset of attractions, outdoor recreation, right? And there are levels below each of these, but this is just sort of the collapsed view for the purposes of the meeting today. In September, the hope is we'll be coming with wireframes potentially. Homepage is the plan for the September meeting, but this is just kind of the architecture site map, how we have everything kind of laid out, right, for you all today.
And this was really pulled from what's currently on the website today, what the analytics were showing us, and then the content that we're basically taking from the interviews. We also would want to take that from what we also saw from the surveys. I don't think anything was missing from the consumer survey, but that is another thing that we may want to review and make sure that we have places for. But essentially, from the research, from the competitive overview, as well as what's currently presented on the site, this is what essentially came out of that.
On the places to stay, food and drink, how are we, this is probably more an internal question, how are we getting the names of those businesses? How is it decided what goes on there?
For right now, it's us, because we don't have the .biz site up and running. My hope.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, so working with the local restaurants, this isn't about listing every Subway or Burger King. It's about what's unique, our restaurants in Carson City. So working with all of those restaurants, we're going to have to build this out for right now, right? The second half of the year with the .biz site is obviously turning that control over to those individual businesses, whether it's a hotel or a restaurant, to update their information moving forward. But right now, we're sort of going to do this internally. And Lydia, if you want to.
So, a hotel opens, they contact us, say, I want to be listed, and right now we put a link to their website, or that's the plan going forward, right, on this?
Well, so there will be a link, yeah, if you want to go off to
their
say
website.
book. Oh, my goodness, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Same thing with the restaurants.
So how will the .biz be different from a link to their site? How will that be different?
Okay, so the .biz is what will allow, that's where we're going to allow our partners to load in photos, videos, additional.
So it's really not that much different than linking to their website. It just may give them a platform if they don't already have one.
Absolutely.
Is that a
to
fair
put
statement?
that additional content in, yeah. That way, we're not responsible for always having to go out there and either trying to take pictures, hunt photos down, hunt videos down.
So in terms of places to stay, if someone's not on here, we would add them. Right? I mean,
yeah.
okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
So do we have you talked about saying it isn't about Burger Kings or Subways. Do we have a policy that describes who can go on the website and who cannot go on the website?
Not at this point, no.
Okay.
No,
I would encourage you to do that. I mean, we need to have that because
Absolutely.
otherwise, we have to make sure we're not being arbitrary about allowing businesses to be on there. And if we don't have a policy ahead of time, then, we could be accused of being arbitrary and capricious and,
Sure.
So I think that's critical.
I agree completely.
And then on events, this got brought up at a Board of Supervisors meeting maybe a month or two ago. And we really need to find a way I would love for the CTA to be the clearinghouse for event information. And it's a struggle and everyone has to, but I would really love to have something on our website and our publication, our materials that says, we're it, we are it. If you're having an event, we're it. Put it on our website, we'll get it down, let's let the world know. Because we end up with these conflicts, where two events are going on at the same time and people say, well, gosh, I didn't know that was happening. And if we all sort of have the mindset that CTA is the spot, this is the spot, if it's not on here, it isn't happening, type thing. I would just love to see us all get to that same place.
I would too. It's not easy. I will say that because, the chamber obviously has events listed on their website. Individual properties have events, the casinos have events. You're right, everybody has their own list of events. We too, or I guess I can speak for the CTA here and the team, but we want to get to that point as well, especially for the big major events. I'm not saying we're ever going to have 100% of every single, mom and pops, not the restaurant, but individual little tiny events that take place all over the place. But we can certainly work toward that, and at least for the bigger events, ensure that we have the appropriate information. The right dates helps, right? And then getting people to the right website for that actual event, I think, is important as well.
And I think for the at least in my mind, for the Chamber of Commerce and for the city, there might be a way because the city already is routing special event information internally. It seems like it would be an easy enough thing if you called over to Parks and Rec and to planning and said, can you just put us on your generic email, put us on the list, and then at least it can come to you and you can decide if it's a block party. Obviously, you're not going to put it down unless we're invited. Then I'm in. But
Yeah, and again, Stacy, when we get the .biz site, and I maybe you want to expand on this a little bit, Andy, that .biz site for events will be, you can't imagine how helpful and beneficial, because right now, all of this information has to be completed, built out by the team right now, because we don't have a mechanism to allow a particular event to go in, create their, user ID and their password, and to load their event, which then, James or Lydia or myself would vet before we push that live to the website.
And it's going to be simple enough to where an idiot like me could put it together?
Be careful how you answer that, Lydia.
No, I called myself out.
Above
so
average intelligence, I think so. No. Yeah, absolutely. The .biz, we're really focusing on the consumer website first. So to be
Yes.
honest, we don't have a lot of info for you yet
Okay.
about the .biz. So I think that's probably a couple of meetings from now, but yes, for sure. And we have the travelnevada.biz, which we use. And so at least we have something to go off of. And there's definitely pros and cons with that they're fixing too. So hopefully they can give us some guidance along the way as well.
Good deal.
And I, just coming back to events, I can tell you that was something that on the state level, next to impossible, as you can imagine, for all the communities, right? It's going to be difficult, even though we're only talking about Carson City County, but I'm committed to trying to figure this out, so it's a collaborative effort with all of our partners, right, to share and loading that content, those images, pictures, videos, that we don't necessarily have, for
Eventually,
everyone.
to Stacy's comment, though, that's what we want to be, right? That's what we are. We market, right? We market Carson City. We mark everything
Well,
about
I mean,
it.
I think it has to be. It's
Yeah.
the way it has to be. But I'll talk to Parks and Rec and Community Development, and I'll just say, hey, can we add? Do we have a generic CTA email address?
We have a gift shop at visitcarsoncity.com, which is our generic that comes in the main.
Just visit carsoncity.com?
Gift shop at.
Oh, gift shop.
At Visit Carson City.
Okay.
Send everyone to David's address.
Yeah.
Email.
That's where all my junk mail is going, so.
I just have one quick question, if I could. On the places to stay, have you considered maybe breaking that up into a couple of categories, like bed and breakfast versus RV? And
Yeah, so the places to stay, you'll be dropped into mainly the listings page is what we call it. And so that'll show basically the wide range of the different places to stay. And from there, you'd be able to filter based off of RV parks, whether it's a hotel, whether it's a motel, whether it's a casino or what have you. So we'll figure out exactly what those categories are and what makes the most sense. But essentially with knowing, I think there was roughly around 25 types of different places to stay. I think that we want to make sure that, we're addressing what the users really want on there, but essentially knowing that we can definitely have a filter system on there as well.
Andy, on the things to do and even the Nevada Historic Capital, are the lists below, are they in any particular order? Or, is it based on what you found was more popular than the other, or what people wanted, or are they just put in there?
So I think Nevada's historic capital, in terms of just what we wanted to highlight, was we did see that certain people do want to know how to get there. So we wanted to make that really the forefront of how and what information we're presenting. But then going to Nevada's Capitol building, Governor's Mansion, those were just really the highlights of what people do specifically when they get here. But we could definitely rearrange that. And then Nevada history was just a general term because we see that even being built out further for the specific pieces. So whether that be the history of Kit Carson, whether that be the history of Mark Twain, whether that be haunted tours or what have you, that would really speak to the history, but that was just mainly just a general overview. And then with things to do, I believe it wasn't in no particular order, but we can definitely rearrange that as well.
All right, thanks.
And where will the itineraries go? Because I really think that itinerary I think that's a great idea, given the information we just had from David talking about, 1 day visits, 2 day visits, 3 to 5 day visits, that's where, so it'd be great to say, hey, if you're gonna be here 3 days, here's a day 1 itinerary. Is that what you're looking at? Day 2 itinerary, day 3 itinerary?
Yeah, and we were even on the homepage, we were envisioning something that could be more specific to the types of itineraries. So if someone who's more outdoor, they would go into more of like, okay, there's mountain biking that you can do, and you need to hit these trails and go up to Tahoe and do these water sports versus a historic itinerary. And so I think there's definitely different ranges on where that, and that could be, it's definitely gonna be presented on the homepage, but that can also lead into the blog content as well.
Okay, it almost seems like it could be its own tab. I don't know if you think that fits, but if you can generate enough of them, it almost seems like it could have its own tab.
Yeah, definitely. I could definitely see that under things to do.
Stacy, just to clarify, by its own tab, do you mean underneath things to do, or you mean top-line navigation where it's historic capital?
I kind of meant top-line navigation, but you guys are the experts. I'm just thinking if you come up with enough of them, it almost seems like it could be,
Okay.
Its own top-line tab, but maybe not. Maybe it's too close to things to do.
We can definitely explore that. I also want to be able to allow people, if you're way into one of these tabs, railroads or something like that, to have an itinerary that allows you to hit both places, right? So I want to be able to have people come and go, right? If they want to click off to a railroad-specific itinerary, like the plan is underneath
That it would be under railroad.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, exactly,
that's
because
good.
we want to have it right there. So if somebody drills in, allow them just to boom, click, print, take it with them, or whatever, it is they want to
It
do.
would be nice if there were a way to sort of do both. I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense, but I think it would be also kind of cool to be able to have something somewhere that said itineraries, you can click it and the whole thing blows up where it gives railroad itineraries and dirt bike itineraries, and so you're kind of cross-referencing. And I don't know enough about architecture design, hence my idiot comment from before, but there seems like there's a way to do that, so.
Yeah, we could definitely, we will definitely look into that.
Any other comments, questions? Well, thank you.
Thank you.
I think
Appreciate
we're on
the
the
time.
right track.
Thank you guys very
Yeah.
much. Thank you.
Yeah, we're
Looks good.
moving in a positive direction. I like it. Okay. All right, moving on to item 12, discussion and possible action regarding the CTA Statement of Accounts Payable Checks and P-Card Report. David, and I would just say, I think I've if we have any questions, I don't know if you have to go through every purchase, but there are any questions from the board in the savings of time.
I'm just looking at the June accounts payable, and it says January rent? Is this correct?
You are correct, and that's because we did not receive a bill from the
Okay.
Kaplan, so,
Just checking.
yeah, they realized we never received it, and we dealt with it over the summer.
And I only have just one more comment. But, last, the June meeting, where I had talked about the the Conica. It was a two-part, the first one is, did they ever give us, what was the decision made on the late payments? Were they willing to work with us on that, or were they just gonna jab us for it? And did we come up with a better solution to eliminate that?
So we're working with Konica Minolta on both parts of that. The late payments, getting a credit, a check cut for those late payments, the recent ones at least. And the second part of that is we're trying to do two things. One is to get the bills sent electronically as soon as they're generated rather than through the mail, which seems to be costing us a week or 10 days right now. And then also looking at the terms to go to net 45 or a net 60 or whatever it takes basically to be able to get these folks paid through the city's accounting system on time, right? So it doesn't continue to show up every month as though it's a late payment. So we're working on the big credit as in a check back, and the next part of this, twofold actually, I think it's not only the late fees, but we're also trying to understand the insurance piece as well, since it seems like we have the two insurance policies on the machine because we cover it as well. And it's also a part of the lease. So that's another aspect of the Konica Minolta lease agreement that we're talking with them about. So it could be moving a little faster, but we're trying. Chris is doing a great job of staying on these guys literally every day to get through to the right people.
Any concerns? All right, could I get a motion?
I move to approve the CTA account activity statement of accounts payable checks and P-card charges for May and June 2019.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. On to item 13, discussion and possible action regarding the adjusted CTA fiscal year 19 budget report. David?
Thank you, Chair Jones. So this report is what was in the accounting system as of June 30th. We don't close fiscal 19 until this Friday. So we have, and then of course, the unaudited numbers will come up at the September meeting and the final audit comes up at the November meeting. So I just want to remind everybody what you're looking at again are those expenses that were in the system, even though we continue to pay expenditures through the June 30th, right? So all the expenditures are not on this particular report, nor are the revenues. So we have revenue through May with a couple of missing properties as well. So I just want everybody to know in terms of what you're looking at from the revenue perspective and also the expenditure side of it. The grant revenue, we did not receive that reimbursement from the state until July, so I don't want you to look at this and go, oh my goodness, they haven't received any of the grant reimbursements. Those have come in July, so we do have that, and it'll get posted back into fiscal 19, but in terms of what we're reporting on here, that's a zero under that particular section. So the other thing I will just point out is all the interlocal payments were made in full, but that's as of the 6th of August, right? So we've made all of the payments off to the interlocal agencies as well. Other than that, in the interest of time, if there are any questions, I'm happy to address them.
Questions from the board?
None.
No? All right, can we get a motion?
I move to approve the adjusted fiscal year 19 budget report as presented through June 30th, 2019.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. On to item 14, non-action items, Executive Director update. David?
Thank you, Chair Jones. So I'm going to be really brief on my report because I really want you to hear from James and Lydia. So I'm just going to cover a couple of upcoming opportunities that we have here in Carson City. So Travel Nevada will be leading a FAM trip during September 25th to September 30th. For the 28th and the 29th, this FAM group will be visiting Carson City. The FAM group is comprised of 3 Flight Center Australia travel agents, 2 American airline representatives from Australia, 2 travel agent representatives from Mexico, and both of those agents have been handpicked by Valeris, which is fantastic, #1 operator down there. That's also the airline that currently services Guadalajara to Reno as well. We'll also have 2 travel agencies from West Canada, and Travel Nevada's new representative office will be a part of that group as well. So I'm excited to say that we're going to have the overnight on this one, which is what obviously I've been pushing for, an opportunity to house these folks overnight here in Carson City. So I'll skip all the details, but we're going to have some great activities for them to do. The second opportunity that we have with Travel Nevada, and they are partnering with the Reno Sparks Convention and Visitors Authority, is a FAM for trade from China. So these FAM participants will be picked up by Travel Nevada on October 16th, and they're going to start right here in Carson City. So this is a situation where we'll have them for the morning, and they'll be our starting point. We'll give them the Highway 50 passes. We'll look at the Railroad Museum potentially, as well as a state capitol tour, which is, I think, very appealing to the Chinese visitor. And then these folks are going to travel along Highway 50 to Ely, and from there, they'll head out, I think, through probably Salt Lake City. But East-West, the Travel Nevada representative, will be along for translation. And right now, it looks like we're going to have 8 to 10 travel agents and tour operators. So again, this is the morning of October 16th. So a couple of interesting groups of folks coming in representing 4 different countries here in the next couple of months. So I'm excited about this. So I'll be working with the team. Lydia's going to help me on one to cover when James is doing his other part of the job, and then James will come back and help me with China. So we're gonna tag team both of these FAM groups that are coming in. So with that, I'm gonna be quiet and we'll move forward.
Turn it over
Any
to
questions?
James and Lydia.
Up on this list on the wall here, or up on the screen here, we have a list of events. Both are events that we will be attending as the CTA, and others more of events that are taking place in Carson City. So the first one we have on August 20th, which is next week, Tuesday through Thursday, is the Jukebox International Film Festival. Currently, the information that we have on this is there's a total of 25 international films that are in this year's film festival, and these come from 11 different countries. Half of the directors and people that are featured in this film will be here next week. And last year, we had some of the bands that came from Brazil, and they performed at Sassafras. They got their haircuts at some of the places in town and also performed there. So it was a great overall marketing opportunity for us. And this year, we have some of these same groups, but they're participating in with the Jazz and Beyond Festival as some of their events, in addition to some of the workshops. These film directors will be doing some of the workshops here inside the Bonanza Room while the event takes place just down there. So we're looking forward to seeing this film festival grow and increase. This is the second year that we are supporting them. So we're looking for more opportunities for us to promote this international film festival to where we can make Carson City a destination when it comes to the film festival arts community. So this is something that it's a local grown organization that we are supporting to see what we can do to help them get a little bigger. The next one after that is the Outlaw Flat Track Race. Last year, for the past 3 years, this was a one-day event. It's gotten big enough to where that we can extend that to 2 days. We're anticipating 250 riders. There is a pro purse involved in this. I don't recall the dollar amount per se, but it's enough to where we're getting a lot of participants coming out of town to participate in this. I don't think we've extended this in the past, but if any of you board members are interested in participating or attending the event, let me know and I can get you tickets to attend that. And we can coordinate which day you would prefer to go, either Friday, the 23rd, or Saturday, the 24th. Okay, following that is September 6th through the 8th. The beginning of September is the Great Reno Balloon Race. We are taking over a booth that Travel Nevada has offered us, and we are taking the lead working with RTT in the hopes of us being able to market and promote Carson City to roughly 120,000 people that we estimate attending that. Those numbers come directly from the Reno Balloon Race Organization. It is our goal and mission to not only market Carson City, but also collect data on some of the people that we interact with. So we are doing a raffle contest. We're doing a contest essentially, and we are working with Mike Jones. You might have already seen this, or I think you did see this. We sent out a prize request for the lodging properties, and we'll be working with the restaurants. It is our hope that we can get some of the snacks or food from some of the restaurants to promote while we are there, so that they can see how awesome the culinary arts are that we have in Carson City. We also we're seeking opportunities to include us selling or giving away hot chocolate, and we have cups that have the Visit Carson City logo on it to help us with the marketing efforts. So it's going to be a big weekend, early weekend too, and I think part of the prize request was for the lodging properties. If any lodging property is interested in participating and having a portion of the booth that is open, we have offered that to all the lodging properties. So if you are available and would like to show up at 3:30 a.m. To help set up and help with the marketing and promotions, we welcome that. Following that is we have the Silver State Art Festival. This is a Nevada Gourd Festival that takes place at Fuji Pavilion. This is year 3. And pretty much the majority of the gourds that are made at these events are all people from outside of Carson City. They come from the state, they come from California to sell their gourds. I attended the event last year, and the production, the quality of the events is, in my opinion, big enough to where that they might have to move out of that Fuji building complex that they have there, just because of how high quality and the amount of people that are coming in town for this gourd festival. So we're hoping that grows. We will continue to support that. And the month of September is pretty busy, right? So September 20th through the 22nd, Peter Stetina, which is the partnership with Carlos Perez and Bike Monkey. This is their official fam tour that they're doing here in Carson City. They will be doing a pre-ride in addition to a marketing opportunity for us to gain some steam for the May event. So it's our hope that we can get some good shots of the trails, of the people riding on the trails, so that we can help and market and promote this, so that we can get that high level of engagement in riders in come May. So we are there to support Carlos in what he's trying to do, and we're working together on trying to make sure that itinerary for that weekend is an awesome one. The main participants that are participating in that are all the main sponsors that he has for Bike Monkey. So these are people with deep pockets that we are trying to showcase why Carson City was chosen for this event. The Governor's Global Tourism is in November from the 12th to the 20th for the 14th. This event, it's a yearly event that takes place. They alternate between Reno and Las Vegas. This year's in Las Vegas, and we will be sponsoring the exclusive closing reception sponsorship. So this will give us an opportunity to have a booth and be able to promote to roughly 350 people that's involved in the tourism industry that will be attending this Governor's Tourism Summit. So I think that's a big opportunity for us to make potential contacts and see what we could do to gain our marketing outreach a little bit further. The last one, and it's the biggest one, is December 8th through the 12th. This is NTA, which is the National Tour Association. They have once a year, they do a big event for all the tour operators, DMOs, to all come together to network and build itineraries to help build programs in different cities. This is taking place in Fort Worth, Texas. A lot of the work for this actually takes place between October and November 1st because the majority of your appointments are preset appointments. And so some of the requirements for this is for us to have our information updated online, have our contacts, and update pretty much the information and services that Carson City offers so that we can have these pre-scheduled appointments before we even get there. We will have a booth at this event as well to help us market Carson City, and specifically one of the reasons why David selected this place for us to go is for us so that we can start the process to work on our motor coach. It's something that we see some properties doing really well on, but we want to be able to be at the forefront to extend our motor coach experience through a bigger crowd of tour operators. So we're looking forward to starting this and seeing what we can do to build and grow it. All right, so those are like the major events in the works. This section here, the American Softball Academy Showcase this is a partner. I met with this guy a couple of times. We've been through his website and kind of looked at him bringing an event to Carson City. So this softball showcase, what these guys' objective is they want to put together a softball tournament for and bring in all the universities to kind of showcase the talent that will be participating in this. Now, they put a cap at 42 total teams to participate in this, to keep it big enough but small enough to where the participants can get one-on-one engagements with the recruiters that are be coming to watch them perform at this tournament. We have set a preliminary date for June 2020. We already worked with Parks and Rec to make sure that the availability of the facility is open, which it is. And the last leg of this, in order for us to be completely comfortable with bringing this, is to actually see them run a tournament. And they'll be running a tournament in September in Pasco, Washington. So I'll be making the trip out there to kind of vet the final vetting process to make sure that what they say is what I see and the product is good. And I get a chance to speak and talk to some of the recruiters that are participating in that. So this is in preparation for 2020.
These are high school students?
Correct.
That are potentially getting recruited?
Correct.
So they're probably not the star athletes, but those upper level ones that don't already have a scholarship?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. But for us, it's a great opportunity for us to get into this market, something that we're just pretty much diversifying our softball arena just a little bit further. The next one is the CSNSA. This is the Clean and Sober National Softball Association. Fairly new organization. They haven't been out too long, but they have a World Series tournament that takes place in Palm Springs, California. And there's over 100 teams that participate in this tournament. And so the conversations with them, talking through the phone and having a representative that actually lives here in Carson City, working with Parks and Recs Department, we're setting a preliminary date for September of 2020. This will be a good opportunity for us because of the fact that they are a newer organization, but yet they have a pretty good footprint already for us to be that Northern Nevada, Northern California event that would take place for this. So, and the Clean and Sober National, their mission statement, to continue to foster unity across the United States among clean and sober softball players is something that, I think is a good opportunity for us to support. So, surveys. We, since May or since April, we've been doing surveys, soccer tournaments, baseball tournaments, trap shoot tournaments, mountain bike races, concerts, in addition to even upcoming the film festival, the Outlaw Flat Track race, more concerts, more baseball tournaments. It's been a great experience for many aspects. And one of them is doing the physical surveys gives me a really good opportunity to kind of learn about people that are traveling here to Carson City, understanding some of their concerns and some of the things that they love about the city as they are here visiting these tournaments. It's been a great revelation, and we can't wait to share that information with you guys once we have compiled all this data. We have been working with Brian London, who's based out of Florida, and also David Peterson with his expertise to make sure that we are doing our due diligence and doing this right and correctly. So the other good thing is that every weekend I've had a great opportunity to work on my tan. So that's the other reason. So any questions?
No, good job.
All right.
All right, we'll sum this into 2 minutes as best as possible. Just to go over the numbers really briefly, since the last time we spoke, we've had delivered over 1.4 million impressions. We've had almost 12,000 people engage with our posts through all social networks. And we've had almost 5,000 people click on those ads that we're delivering through Facebook and Instagram. We've had an increase of almost 1,000 followers. We're up about 6.6% in comparison to the previous months, which is early May through mid-June. Our video ads and our paid Facebook advertising have been really successful. So I wanted to give you a snapshot of just 2 of the examples. I think we've delivered over 50 ads since the beginning of June. So this just gives you an idea of some of the 2 of our major events that we've promoted. And you can see on the Ghost Walk, we've had 3,200 people like and engage with the post and 167 comments. And that was delivered all in California. So there are some locals who were delivered that ad, but we are getting a lot of people that are engaging with that. And the Taste of Downtown got 1,100 likes and 37 comments on that. And then you can just see our increase in the upper left-hand corner. It's hard to see, but that's just a snapshot of the growth in followers and our engagement and the impressions that we've delivered, kind of broken out per outlet. So I purposely made this very busy because I wanted to give you an idea of the amount of press that we've gotten since June. And these are all articles that were written about us outside of the influencer work that we are doing on social media as well. And those are some of the pictures that we've gotten from the trips that we've done. So through June and July, we have received unique visitors per month is what that UVPM stands for. And KPS tracks this with this Cision software that tracks all the PR and scans the internet for everything that is involving Carson City. And so in June, we got 1.1 million UVPMs and a publicity value of $257. And in July, we received 312,000 and a publicity value of $20,000. And then through year to date, through July, we've received a total of 751,000 reach, which is the amount of people it actually reached, not the impressions, and a publicity value of $171,500. So if you have the digital version of this, we have all of these linked for you to take a look at. Some of the highlights that are outside of Carson and Reno are the True West magazine, which listed us as 10 of their favorite cool mountain getaways. And then Moonshine Inc. Did a really cool article on us about the by rail, by river, by lake. And then one of the other ones that was a highlight was Lance Armstrong has a really, really successful podcast that he also puts on YouTube. And Todd Sadow from Epic Rides sponsors that podcast now. And he gave a very genuine outlook about Todd and Epic Rides and mentioned Carson City in that podcast by name, which is about at minute 21 if you want to click and look at that. And so this is the additional press from the influencers that we've actually paid to bring into Carson City and do a day trip, a weekend trip, and the press that we've gotten from it. So this is just an overall list of who we brought in. Some of them were to do blogs. Some of them were to do video content. Breeze Turner is actually from Tahoe. She does dog-friendly content in the cities that she travels to. And that's what I'm going to get into here. So Caitlin was from Reno, and this is what I'm talking about when we tie it directly back to the properties. So these properties that are participating, whether it's lodging, whether it's a restaurant, Instagram actually tracks how the people that tap on the tags that these people are using in their stories and on their posts. and I'm happy to go into more detail offline about this, but that's what they call a sticker tap. So for Caitlin, she stayed at the Bliss Bungalow. She tagged the Bliss Bungalow in the post that she did on her story, which you can see in the upper left-hand corner got 1,600 views, which is basically like I described live TV. So I take a short video, I upload it to my Instagram story, and for 24 hours, someone sees my life. And so that's what these people are doing. She got 1,600 views. She tagged Bliss Bungalow, and 42 of those people were interested enough to actually want to go and see the Bliss Bungalow page. And on Breeze's post, she gets almost 5,000 to 6,000 views on every Instagram story that she does, whether it's a picture or it's a 3-second video, which is incredible engagement. And her sticker taps, she stayed at the St. Charles Hotel, she got 16, and then we got 16 people that were interested in visiting our page. She tagged the Taste of Downtown when she was here. 30 people tapped on the Taste of Downtown to see what more about it. She also went to the Kings Canyon Waterfall Trailhead, and 72 people were interested in the Kings Canyon Trailhead. Scoops Ice Cream, and the list goes on. The people that are really participating, and we are bringing a lot of people in, and we do have a small budget. So this is where these comps and stuff really come into play. And here's the genuine interests that are coming in. These are the comments that are actually left on the people's post. One said, "To be honest, I never had an interest in the area ever since your trip. I'm thinking that it's definitely on my list. Visit Carson City. Are there any direct flights from Chicago?" Whoa, there's waterfalls up there. This waterfall is gorgeous. It sounds like a fun place to visit. I love following your stories. That's in Carson City. What? All of these are happening, and the list goes on, and some people are commenting who used to live here. Some said, "Where the hell do you find a waterfall in Carson City?" Quote. Where in Carson is this? Honestly, based on your post, we're definitely going to go check it out. It looks like a great weekend. We'll have to stop there on our road trip. We love dog-friendly cities. And it goes on from there. And so these are just a small snapshot in the pictures of where people are commenting and really talking about it. So we really appreciate all the participation that we've gotten from the properties and the restaurants. It's really helped, and I love to show that we're actually getting genuine interest in data that we can tie back to you. That's as quick as I could go.
Great.
Is there any questions? All right.
Questions? No? Thanks. Thanks, James. Future agenda items, David, anything for us?
I'll just kind of set up September. So September, the plan is with wireframes, homepage mock-up. So I'd like to see, I think, top tier, maybe secondary, tertiary navigation. You'll see some of the look and the feel around that. We'll also be presenting, or KPS3 will, the communications plan, and then Lydia and I are going to walk through the proposed marketing plan as well for fiscal 19 to get us through June. So those are just a few of the topics that'll be on the September meeting.
Upcoming meetings, just so everybody knows, the next one's 9/13. It's a Friday. It's not a Monday, so,
It's the 13th, too.
yeah,
On a
Friday should be good.
I will be gone. I'm not available.
It's unlucky.
Are you
Okay.
superstitious?
I'll be in Vegas. I'll be working in Vegas.
Any board comments or requests for information?
Yes. So we have the opinion from the DA's office on the 2%. Are we doing something administratively to stop that? Does this board need to do something to stop that? Just like to hear an update if we could.
So Chris and I worked on the letters with the opinion, and they went out to all of the properties that provided through June 30th, the 2%, June 30th, 2019, the 2% discount was in place, but as of 7/1 for business activity moving forward, that 2% discount is no longer in place. And the updated hard copy of the room tax remittance form was included, and we also allowed them the option of asking and requesting for the electronic version. If Chris wants to address the very limited feedback, positive feedback at that from the
That's what I was
properties.
gonna ask.
No,
Did we get any
no
feedback?
issues at all so far, but we did do that to every single property that has paid lodging tax in the past. So I feel like from our perspective, the CTA has handled its part of that, and then of course we will update the policies and procedures pursuant to that specific area of the room tax collection as well. That'd be the other piece of that.
So August will be the first month? No, July.
Business month of activity July, but collected, yeah, remitted in August. Correct.
We sent the letters out with the July form, so they knew that it was
So what's the
already in.
plan when properties don't read their email and they take the deduction and just because they don't
So far,
pay
I've
attention?
only had positive feedback on it. People have asked for the Excel version of the form, and no one has had a complaint, so I don't think it's going to be a problem. And the ones that don't use email, they got the July form, and the July form does not have that option on there. So,
Yeah, so to clarify, the paper copy does not have the 2% discount line, and the Excel version does not have an automatic calculation on that either. So unless they hand wrote something in which case we'll reach out to the property and walk them back to the letter that was sent out.
And then I have one more question. Relative to the transient lodging tax and its applicability to extended stay motels, if we, I guess I'm directing this at Ben or David, if we wanted to have that discussion, would it happen here or would it happen at a Board of Supervisors meeting?
Well, I think it
Or
could
would you
happen
like
at
to
both. What,
think about it a little bit?
probably think about it, but maybe you and I can talk after the meeting to see exactly
Okay.
what you want to happen.
Okay.
Any other comments? All right, this time I'll ask for any public comment. Seeing none, I'll move for a motion to adjourn. We're adjourned.